Hello Stampers, my name is Linda Bedinger and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator. Thank you so much for joining me this afternoon. I have a thank you card project. I thought I would take a break from the Christmas cards. We've done several in a row and I have more to come. But I thought it would be kind of fun to stop and do something else. So let's just get started. Okay, this card was inspired by a swap I received. We have a meeting here in Denver once a month with several of demonstrators, and we do a card swap at this meeting. And I received a card, and I looked all over my office this afternoon, and I can't find it, that came from Charla Fellers. And Charla, in turn, was inspired by something from Amy Condors. And I love the softness, the sweetness of this card. And so I thought I might just try and do my take on it. I always change things up anyway. But the basic concept of the card, which was these flowers down the side, is very, very much like the card that Charla did, which was the one that I received. So let me show you what it is you need to make this card. I used a piece of Seaside Spray, which is 8.5 by 5.5, scored and folded at 4 1/4. Then I have actually 2 pieces of this very vanilla. This first piece is 3 7/8 by 5 1/8. I decided I wanted a little wider border of the navy on here, so that is going to go on this navy piece, and the navy piece is 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. And those are going to be our layering pieces on the front of the card with the flowers on them. Then you need a piece of scrap in the Seaside Spray. And I've seen people put ovals in here and other shapes, but I kind of like the elliptical kind of look of the piece that gets cut out there. So I just use a little piece of scrap and cut out just the center of that. And then I have a piece of Night of Navy scrap that is big enough to cut out this piece. And this is the die that I'm using. And the die that I'm using is coming from the detailed band dies. And there's all kinds of dies that have these bands across them. And there's some really pretty, in fact, see, this oval would easily fit here and carry my message. But like I said, I kind of like the funny shape of that one. So I decided to do that. And is my practice, I have already cut my blue piece, and then I cut out from another scrap the lighter blue piece that will go inside of that. So those are done and ready to go. Now on the inside, I used another piece of very vanilla, and I used a smaller piece. It is 3 5/8, and then a piece that is 3/4 of an inch by about 5 and whatever that is, 5 1/8 to go next to it to bring the navy to the inside. All right, so this is where we're going to do the majority of our work, and I'm using a couple of stamp sets. This is the Parcels and Petals stamp set, and this is where these pretty flowers come from. So I'm using the flowers and the leaf from this stamp set, and then from a big thank you, I use this thanks. And those are the stamp sets that I'm using. And then for ink, I am using the Seaside Spray and I'm using Night of Navy, and I'm using Pear Pizzazz, and then I'm using my Stampin' Right marker in the Night of Navy. And I've got my stamps all mounted here, so, and a piece of scratch paper, so we'll just kind of get started on this and do our stamping. I'm going to start with the Seaside Spray to lay in the flowers, and ink that up, and it's got all of those beautiful little dots around it. I thought that was so pretty. And I'm going to set this first one down right here so that we get the full, all three of the flowers there. And then I'm going to turn it upside down and get the flowers in here. And there we have them. The next thing I'm going to do is using my Pear Pizzazz and my little leaf out of that pattern that also has little dots around it. And I'm going to go ahead and just add some leaf detail around, and I found that I was happier the more I added. So I'm going to go ahead stamping off the page and on the page. And some of these leaves, this is very, very ethereal. These leaves in some cases don't look like they're really attached to anything. And you know what? That turned out to be just fine with me. So I'm putting some leaves in kind of all around the front here. And some of this is going to get covered up by the message, but I like the idea of having these leaves even in the center. There, I think that's pretty good. All right, okay, so I think I'm going to go ahead and just do the stamping on the inside of my card while I'm at it. And so I'm going to set the green aside and go back to the Seaside Spray and put my flowers in. And in the case of the inside, I did kind of stamp across the top here, and then I stamped down the side a little less than I did on the front of the card. And I'm thinking I kind of missed this one here, so I'm going to see if I can't fix this one here at the top a little bit. There we go. All right, so there we go. That's for the inside of the card. And then that will do it for the Seaside Spray. And I'm just going to add my leaves on the inside. And then the other thing I decided to do was to add some additional detail. I'm a little bothered by a flower that doesn't have a center. And so what I did to add centers to my my flowers in this case was to take my Night of Navy marker, and I just created some little navy dots around the flowers to add a little bit of that darker detail. And then on the centers of the flowers, I went ahead and put in some stamens. And they don't have to be anything special. It's just that it looks more complete to me when it has that kind of detail. So I went ahead and put some centers in my card, and I just really do like the way it looks. So I'm pretty happy with it. And then adding my dots around the flowers. So I pick up some more of that darker navy color. It just felt to me like it needed just a little bit of a punch-up. And I'm really pleased with the way that they came out. So putting a few in just randomly, I don't think you can go wrong by adding a few. And like I say, adding some of this darker detail around some of the flowers, I think makes a nice addition. So there we go. And that is the difference between having a stamen and a few dark navy dots versus none. This is almost, in my opinion, a little too pale. So punching it up a little bit with the darker color, I think makes a real interesting flower. So I'm going to continue on, and I'll quiet the video while I mess around with this. There we go. All right. So now that feels complete to me. Now, this card is really very simple. There is just the couple of layers, and I'm going to go ahead and add my Night of Navy piece and then wrap my sentiment. So I have one bit more of stamping to do, and that's to put my thanks message on here. In the meanwhile, I'm going to attach this piece so that it has a similar border all the way around. There we go. All right, now on this piece, I don't know if this was the intention of it, but what I found was that once I got this kind of centered on here, putting a little bit of glue, I did use my dot runner glue because it has a tendency to stick only on the surfaces. And I just put some glue all over this band and onto these end pieces, and then decided where on the card I wanted this to go. And I'm thinking right about there. And I'm going to try and center that there. And then these pieces, just like ribbon, wrap right around the back and are glued on. Isn't that handy? So this piece is now ready to go on here. Now I suppose to add some additional dimension, I could cut a fussy cut one of these flowers up and raise it up, and you could certainly do that, but I was going for something that was a little bit simple and fast, because I was thinking of doing a handful of these for my customers for this month. And so I need something that kind of moves right along. So here we go. This is going to go on here and have just a slightly larger border. So the navy plays a more important part on the front of this card. And between the two, I definitely like the bigger navy border. Very nice. Okay, so the last thing we have to do is get our stamping done here on this piece. And I'm going to use my thanks stamp and my Night of Navy ink. So ink this up And I'll get my Pierce mat and put down my thanks message. And there we go. We have a nice thanks message to go right in the center here. Let's let that dry for just a second. And I can move a few of these things out of the way that we don't need now. And we can put these two pieces together. I'm just going to run some snail on the back side of this and maybe use my grid paper to help me get this on here straight. I just want a little rim of that navy showing there. And I think that looks pretty good. Now I can trim this off and we can add this to the inside of our card. And that allows us to bring a little of the inside of the card, or the outside of the card, to the inside. And I think I'm going to put this one on this way. There we go. And plenty of room to write your message there. All right, now this piece is ready to go. And I'm going to put a couple of dimensionals in the center, and then these little pieces that are poking out, I'm going to put some minis on. This is all ready to go, and I'm just going to lay that down ever so lightly until I'm sure that it's on there and centered. And there is my card so far. Now, the last piece that I used was some rhinestones from the Holiday Rhinestone Collection. So I'm using some of these rhinestones, and now as I look at them, they're blue, but they look almost green to me. Maybe I'll use on this one some of the sequins from the woven threads, because that way I can match the blue perfectly. And I can use my pick tool and some glue dots to put some sequins around on my card. Well, that is our project for the day. Thank you so much for stopping by my YouTube channel today. I do so appreciate it. And if you don't already have a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, I'd love to be your demonstrator. Or you could join my team. My prize draw for the month of October is your choice of any bundle out of the holiday catalog. You can get yourself in the drawing by placing an order of any size on my website, lbedinger.stampinup.net, or you can get to it through my blog, www.ingenuity.com. Again, thanks for stopping by, and I'll be back soon with more cards, more projects, and more tips. Bye!